Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to today's video where I will talk to you about the top 5 decks I believe you should consider picking up as a beginner to improve at the game. These decks are not ranked in any specific order, as I believe all the decks have something important to teach you, and I'm really excited to share you guys this list. So without further ado, we'll jump right into it. Number 1, Endymion Pendulum. If you're a new player, I highly recommend this deck if you're interested into a more combo variant of, decks. The Pendulum deck is very non-linear in its approach to its end board, and being able to navigate full combo, aka 6 negates for every hand trap, will teach you a lot how to make the worst hands possible with a little bit of creativity. Also, because the deck does not play any hand traps at all, going second with this deck is very rewarding, and it's very skillful as you get to maneuver through some of the craziest and most oppressive boards with just Pendulum cards. And if you haven't already, Triff's latest video actually showcased how he was able to play through 6+ negates going second with just the Pendulum deck and the Pendulum cards itself. So that deck, I believe, has a lot to teach you about going second without any hand traps, as well as setting up interruption while playing through interruption. I highly recommend picking up 3 structure decks if you guys haven't already, and I'm looking for any additional cards, to get that full build. I know Triff Gaming has, budget builds available on his channel as well, so definitely go check him out. I remember that this was actually the second deck I ever picked up when I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm super happy that I did, because the skills, the experience, and the memories that I got of breaking through boards with Mighty Master, setting up 6+ negates through Ash, Ogre, etc., whatever you name it, was super fun and super rewarding. So I highly recommend this deck to you guys if you haven't already, pick this up. Number 2, Dragon Link. If you watch my 2-part series with Shooping on a 60-card deck, you'll find that Dragon Link is a combo deck that rewards you for truly understanding how the deck works. And what I mean by that is that if you're a new player and love dragons, this is a combo deck that rewards you if you know the interactions and the role of what each card plays. This is a combo deck that can teach you how to play through hand traps and interruption, as I've seen Shu play through Nibiru, Ash, Veiler, DD Crow, Mourner, all these hand traps, you name it. She was able to full combo and still have it on some sort of board in order to interact with his opponent. I think that players that understand how to do that really showcases full the understanding of the Dragon Link deck and its capabilities. It's actually a very hard deck to master, but it's a very easy deck to play, and so I highly recommend you guys pick this up as a beginner and really improve with this deck, so that you can take this deck to a high level. I also want to say that this is a deck that can play a lot of hand traps. This means that you get to learn how to properly hand trap your opponent going second, and this is I guess I would call this a bonus learning moment, because it rewards you for learning your deck really well, but also it rewards you for learning how your opponent decks really well, because you need to properly hand trap your opponents. You can ask anyone that a well-timed hand trap at a choke point is very impactful. And that's pretty much it, guys. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend you pick up 3 copies of the Dragon Link structure deck, Rocket Revolution, and then fill in the cards slowly if you're a beginner and have budget constraints, and then definitely take this deck out for a spin and let me know. Number 3, Sky Strikers. I think this is one of the craziest decks that rewards you for understanding the current metagame. Sky Strikers is a very reactive deck, as it tailors its main deck choices in order to play around the current metagame. With Engage no longer around, this deck has become a lot more skillful, as you don't go plus ultra every turn. So you have to carefully make use of your Sky Striker links and spells in order to maneuver some of the craziest boards, and also to control the game state. Control decks, but Sky Striker in particular, actually teaches you the importance of understanding how your deck works. And this is more so than I feel any other deck, because Sky Striker, because of how it's adopted a more go second strategy, learning to break boards going second and setting up control is super fun, super interactive. Ryan Yu, one of the players who piloted this deck to first place at LCS number 3, told me that if you want a great brain exercise, definitely consider picking this deck up. Ironically, this deck kind of reminds me of chess, and I've never felt more 5-head, playing this deck under pressure at a competitive event. At the same time, he told me that actually the night before that this is one of the decks that rewards you heavily for, you know, making the correct plays, but also punishes you very heavily if you were to misplay. And so it's a deck that, like, you know, is very hard to master, but when you do, it will teach you so much about the game and teaches you a lot of technical play to improve. Number 4, Altergeist. So this is a deck that has, you know, a lot of very bad rep within the community, and I don't blame you. A lot of trap decks, you know, is kind of like known for its unga unga, bunga bunga, you know, reputation. But I think that Altergeist is different from a lot of the other floodgate trap-based decks, such as, like, for example, like Guru, which relies on, like, there can only be one and various other floodgates to control the game. Altergeist, in fact, is a control deck that plays a lot of trap cards, but I think learning to flip up trap cards is actually a very underrated skill. And what I mean by that is most players shotgun their interruption or their traps on the first thing they see. And while sometimes this may work, more often than not, good combo players will play through it and break your board. And since the inherent flaw of a trap deck is the traps you get are randomized and not searchable, you have to make do with the traps and interruptions that you get and carefully time them and use them to your advantage. Moreover, you know, Altergeist is a deck that don't really play floodgates. At least that's the way I play them. Like, the only floodgates you may play is like an Imperial like order, which is the one of in the deck, and like if you see it, I guess it's super sacky. But for the majority of the time, like, the way you win your games, right, is interacting with your opponent in order to control the game and lock your opponent out of progressing their game state. So what this deck teaches you is understanding how your opponent's decks work, but also how your deck works, and understand mechanics such as like spoofing, you know, shuffle for cost to dodge targeted interruption, or other like just very cute like technical plays and cute interactions to like outplay your opponent. I think Altergeist is a deck that rewards you for playing very well, right, and really understanding the deck, and also like a deck that punishes you very heavily if you were to misplay. And Altergeist is actually the third deck that I built when I got into the game, and the skills that I've learned from this control deck definitely turned me into like a way better player. And I definitely have to like recommend this deck as a staple if you were to like start learning the game right now at this current state in time. Also, because Multifaker went to 3, this is the deck that previously required careful use of Multifaker and managing of your resources. And now, like with Multifaker 3, you have a higher chance, and the deck is actually a very competitive, viable meta threat in the current game. And number 5, Salamangreats, a deck known for its insane grind game and control. And if you watch my video with Gaber2C, you'll know that a good pilot of Salamangreats is actually one of the scariest things to play against. The fact that it came with Ash Blossom in the Struck Shack was super amazing too, because I had ways to disrupt my opponent on their first turn, and learning when to use Ash Blossom has never been more important. And although Salamangreats is not at full power right now, it has one of the scariest grind game out of the current metagame, and is a staple control deck that I recommend to most players in order to understand what a control deck inherently does. With strategies such as, Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf in order to recur back your traps. Your Jaguar is constantly giving you free bodies every single turn. Your monster is protected by Salamangreat Balings. This deck is one of those decks that, if not prepared for, you'll definitely fall to it. Salamangreat is also like a control deck that you have to learn both decks, and I think that's the theme, as you saw with like top 5 decks that I recommended, that these are decks that you need to understand how your deck works, but more importantly, you need to understand how the current metagame works and how your opponent's decks work. By doing so, you know when to use your interruption, properly. And all of these decks that I've recommended before have different types of disruptions. Salamangreat has a counter trap, but it also has a rage, which is non-targeting disruption, right? You have Altergeist with like a targeted bounce, so making careful use of Conquery, Soliloquist, but for Salamangreat, making use of Rage or Roar, like using them properly and using hand traps properly, recycling your resources, maintaining your resources, are all skills that I think are very important that you should take out of the Salamangreat deck. You'll find that like 3 out of 5 decks that I've recommended for beginners are actually out of structure decks, such as Order of the Spellcaster, Rocket Revolution, and Soul Burner, which means that most of the decks are actually viable budget options for the current metagame. If you don't want to invest too much in the game and want to jumpstart right into the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh scene, then I highly recommend you pick up these 5 decks. I would have to say that, I've actually played all 5 of these decks, and each of them have, held dear to me. because they've all taught me something different about how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's very, very important. That, you know, if I were to recommend any 5 decks you should consider learning right now, I think these would be the 5. Definitely go give these decks a try on whether it be Dueling Book, or if your friends has an extra deck you can borrow. Like, definitely pick these up, try them out, let me know how that goes, and, you know, stick with the deck for a while. I really want to recommend that when you like pick up, you know, these decks and you buy them IRL, see how the deck works for you. Give it a lot more tries. If it doesn't work the first time, it's not your playstyle, I would say, you know, give it a couple more duels, give it a couple more tournaments, you know, at your local scene, and see why is it not your playstyle, what can you learn from it. And because the inverse is also true, if you don't like the control decks that I recommended, then try picking up the combo decks, because learning control is I guess very important to also learning combo, because, you know, navigating through a board of like 5 or 4 back row has never been so like never been more rewarding playing a combo deck, because these interruptions are unknown, and as a combo player you have to like play through those interruptions as best as you can. So if you guys enjoy this video, please consider liking this video and give this video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comment section if you agree with the 5 choices that I have listed below. As always, guys, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.